to raise and educate a family. And at this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Gavin Mitchell, who is the Vice President of the Student Government Association for Peninsula Community College. So Gavin, come on out here. Gavin is going to be the moderator tonight, and he is going to be asking the tough questions here. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to turn this over to Gavin. And Gavin, come on and get this candle lit.
Alrighty, so the first question is going to be, will we get TSA style metal detectors, metal scanner equipment?
Out of here, Jeff.
Will we get TSA style metal scanner equipment?
Let's go ahead and have our Sheriff, Mr. Diggs, take this question first.
So the question is, were we going to get metal detectors in schools? So really that is a option for local school boards to make their minds up. I believe they're probably doing that in some high schools. I know that they're doing it at many high school football game and other sporting event locations. And while that sounds like a good idea, it's certainly not a panacea that solves all these problems. For example, I've been to concerts where you had to go through metal detectors, and I was in plain clothes and I was armed, and I went through a winding and I passed, and I went through the metal detector and I passed, and no one ever knew that I was armed. So because you cannot do it at a concert or a high school or other venue like they actually do in the airports, because it's a much more orderly process. So while it may work in some localities, it's not the answer that will solve all of our problems.
Council Virginia.
Ms. Sears.
So I think if the question is about safety, you know, at its foundation, then, you know, the governor has put in the budget, and it did pass, that we would have more SROs in the schools. I believe it's $50 million to keep us safe, and this is for every school. The school then has to make the decision on whether they want the SROs or not. I can tell you, Northern Virginia, some of them don't. And, you know, that's up to them. The parents will have to figure that out with their school board as they elect them. We do have to make sure that our kids are safe, because if they're not safe, they can't learn. So we as parents, we need to make sure that we are involved as well. And then we have to vote on school boards to make sure that things happen that are supposed to happen. But there is money there in the budget for any school system that wants to elect to have SRLs. Now, there is a problem in that, because some people wanted to defund the police, they can't find enough people who want to be part of law enforcement, whether it's even Department of Corrections personnel. And so I can tell you that, Mr. Sheriff, how many folks do you have, or do you have any billets open?
I have one, but I'm the exception to the rule. The state police has several hundred. Many local police departments have 20, 30, 50, 100 or more, depending on the size.
Right. But that's what happens when you talk about defunding of the police. So hopefully we can get them back, because we need to be safe.
And I'm just going to echo the comments of the sheriff and the lieutenant governor. Really, the major problem with our school safety is the lack of officers. Our officers have been demoralized. They've been beaten up. They've been told that they were the problem, and they're the enemy, and that's a big problem. But we don't have a lot of them, and there's just not enough to go around. Once we solve that cultural problem, and that's really what we're trying to do. The voters need to solve that by voting in people who want to fund the police, want SROs. You want your school boards to say, yeah, we want to accept these SROs. Because if they don't accept them, like she said, there's nothing we can do. It's up to the school boards. There's a separation of government. So basically that is our main issue. Metal detectors may be slightly helpful, but really we need SROs, and we need school boards that will accept those SROs.
So I'm actually going to cede my time to Delegate Anderson because he carried legislation that is germane to this conversation. But then in return, I'm asking him to give the microphone back to me for a different purpose.
That's called give me the microphone back. We do that in the House quite a bit. So a couple things. One, school boards can choose to put metal detectors as an option right now. And I had a bill this year that would have mandated metal wanding at every school with single entry points. So here's basically the place where we find ourselves in Virginia. Gun-free zones are extremely dangerous if they're not defended, all right? And so there's lots of gun-free zones that I have absolutely no problems going into. I'm a lawyer. I go into courthouses. When you go into a courthouse, you have to go through metal detectors. And inside the courthouses, there's guys with guns all over the place. When you go to a school, that's a gun-free zone, and the kids are protected with a sign on the wall that says, no guns, okay? Because the criminals that are going to come and shoot the schools up are going to obey the sign on the wall, right? The bottom line is this: as a society, we protect judges more than we protect children. And that's a fact. And we have to accept that as that is where we are in Virginia. Metal detectors don't solve everything, but they certainly reduce the risk of bringing weapons into schools. In Virginia last year, more than 700 guns came into schools that they caught. Metal detectors help detect those and deter those, and kids that would be bringing weapons to school would be thinking twice about it. It's not going to solve every problem, but if we're going to give judges those protections, we should be giving our children the exact same protections. And I yield my time back to the delegate from Williamsburg.
Amen.
So I know we all walked out here and you heard our names and our titles and whatnot. We jumped right into the questions, and that's great. But I wanted to make sure that everyone up here had a chance to introduce themselves really quickly, maybe share just maybe 30 seconds about yourself, at least where your legislative district is, when you were elected, or what you're running for in the case of Sheriff Diggs. So with that, I think, Lieutenant Governor, if you wouldn't mind just saying a couple words about, okay. All right, well, I'm Amanda Vatten. I represent portions of James City and York counties, which is the 96th House District. I was first elected in 2019, and I serve on the Education Committee, Public Safety Committee, Commerce and Energy, and the Rules Committee. And I also chair the House Majority Caucus. So just one of the reasons that I ended up running was pure accident. I didn't look for a life in politics. I ended up volunteering for my local Republican committee and ended up getting a job as a legislative aide, and my boss retired. And when she retired, she asked me to seek the nomination, and so I did. For those of you who are thinking about running for office, or you know someone who you think will be a good candidate, there's never a perfect time. There's never an ideal time, but there's always the right candidate out there. So I just encourage all of you to bear that in mind as you think about what you might want to do in your political future, or the folks that you know who you think would be excellent public servants. So thank you all for being here today. Certainly appreciate your taking the time on a Friday evening and braving the traffic that is in this area. So with that, I'm not sure which way to go. I'm going to send it to Tim.
My name is Tim Anderson. I'm a delegate from the city of Virginia Beach, freshman. So I mostly hold the door for Delegate Batten when she asks, or get her coffee or whatever she needs. So I ran for office because at the time that we were coming out of the Summer of Love, which is when all the riotings were happening and police were being called bad and rioters were being called good. I saw what they were doing to education. The kids were masked up. They were home virtual, and I knew it was wrong. I knew what they were doing was wrong, and I wanted to get in. Education is my absolute core. I'm a stakeholder in education. My children are in public schools. They're not secure. CRT was being forced at the time onto our students in many places in Virginia Beach. It was the time to get in and act, and I didn't want to be the guy that looked back and said, I didn't do something when I could. So that's why I'm there, and I'm going to stay there until we fix this mess, or until they vote me out, whatever happens first.
I'm Delegate AC Cordoza. I represent here. So I have half of Hampton, all of Pocosin, and about a third of York County. I got into politics also by accident. I actually went to a gun show one day. There was a really long line, and I didn't want to wait in it. And someone from VCDL said, "Hey, if you give me $5 more in your email, you can go in right now." So I said, "Yeah, give me that." And I went in. And then a couple of months later, I got an email said, "Hey, come to your local city council and come to the Second Amendment." Everyone remembers the Second Amendment sanctuary deal. So I said, "Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, it'll probably be like 20 or 30 people, something like that." And it was 400 and something people, and I was the last guy. So I went there and I spoke. I waited, spoke, and I just told the truth. Apparently, everyone said I gave an impassioned speech and I should run for city council. And I looked at them and said, you're hilarious. I'm going to work tomorrow. I'm not going to run for city council." Came back the next month, and they found a way to take it off of the agenda, some back deal way they haven't used since the 1800s. And so then they asked me, "So you want to run for it now?" And I was just mad enough and stupid enough to say yes. And I ran for city council. I didn't win, but I got well over the 195 they projected I would get. I actually got about 3,500 votes. And so when the opportunity came to run for the House, I accepted, and I'm here, and I won by 64 votes. So, yeah, that's what I'm here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Winsome Earl Sears. As you know, I'm Lieutenant Governor, but 20 years ago, I was delegate from the 95th district, 90th district, and it was fun. And then decided to do some other things because I had a daughter who was ill and she needed me. And so we moved in, and then here I am now, 20 years later. And my duties this time involve pretty much, well, three things. Deciding whether any additions to any particular bill would be germane. And in fact, I had to do that when we came back into session and the Democrats in the Senate were saying that the governor was not allowed to introduce any legislation. He did not have that authority, and was it germane? And so I had to rule on that issue. And of course, according to Article 5, Section so-and-so, it says the governor may do X, Y, Z in terms of helping our Commonwealth. So they didn't want to hear that, but it's too bad, and I gavelled it. We're good. Then I also get to vote on legislation or possible legislation if there is a tie vote. Got to do that 3 times. One, to protect our First Amendment rights. And in fact, it was a Republican who put forth this bill that would have stopped, political speech that we don't like. And we can't have that. We have to hear all sides, and even political speech that we hate, because that's what we do in America. That's what they do in other countries, not here, and some other ones. But mainly, I am here because I'm trying to be a servant leader more than anything else, because I can't carry bills anymore like I did when I was a delegate, but I certainly can represent all of my constituents, which is all of Virginia, and try to do that to the best of my ability. So thank you for electing me, and God bless you all.
God bless you.
And I'm Danny Diggs. I'm the sheriff of York County in the city of Pocosin, and I have been for the last 23 years. I will be retiring at the end of this year to run for state senate in the new 24th district. And I was asked to do that for several reasons. I was asked because they want a common sense conservative who has a lifetime of public safety experience in the Senate to bring some that needed experience. And secondly, I was asked because they think I can win this new district, and they're confident, and I'm confident I can win this new district. And it's very important because we can take out a Democrat incumbent, therefore change the balance of power in the state Senate and get Governor Youngkin and Lieutenant SEAR, Governor SEAR's agenda through. And at the very least, there'll be a tie. She can break the tie every time. So
I see a couple other candidates that are here. You got Stephen Ferguson, who's a candidate for the Newport News City Council. I see Jordan Grayson right up front. He's a candidate for Newport News School Board. And last but certainly not least, our congressional candidate, Terry Nelcomb. I see Andrew Lavacek, Newport News School Board. Stand up, Andrew. And I see Marlon Pendergrass. Marlon, stand up, Newport News School Board. Now, back to the forum, already in session.
All right, next question. What school is the best college in Virginia?
We'll start with the end.
The school that teaches all of the children.
So I'm a little torn on this because I represent Hampton, but I went to the Peninsula, was Thomas Nelson, now Virginia Peninsula, and I also went to Norfolk State. So I'm going to say those three schools are the best schools in Virginia because I represent one and the other two I went to. So behold the green and gold.
I'm not sure if we're talking colleges here or if we're talking K-12. If it's K-12, there shouldn't be a best school. They should all be equally outstanding.
That was very political, and she didn't answer the question. And neither am I, but I will tell you a story. In the General Assembly this year, we gave the University of Virginia a $2 million budget, an additional budget to teach a class in constitutionalism and democracy. And the delegate from Charlottesville got up on the House floor and said, "You shouldn't tell us what we have to teach. We don't want the money to have a class on constitutionalism and democracy." And I got up and I said, "Why don't we just pass the budget, give you the money, and if you don't want it, you can attack about money." And said, we start about schools in Virginia. They are top-heavy, anti-democracy universities right now. People there that are teaching things that are making our students not love their country. And want them to what that statement.
How can we ensure what happened at Heritage High School doesn't happen again?
Elaborate on that high school and some of the thoughts. AC, want to start with you?
So for anyone who doesn't know, there was a shooting there at that. So for anyone who does not know, there was a shooting at Heritage High School, which was a tragedy. So one of the major things we're going to do is we're going to elect members to the school board, like Jordan Gray, like Marlon, who are going to make sure that our schools are actually safe. We're going to have SROs. We're going to have people there to protect our children, and we're not going to have them sitting ducks for whatever monster decides to have a bad day the next time. So that's what we plan on doing to make sure that never happens again.
I mean, I think that the original questions that were asked tonight about SROs and metal detectors and the security measures in school kind of speak to that. You know, some of those policies had been in place, that tragedy would not have happened. So, you know, I think it goes back to the original point there, Tim.
So you can't stop school shootings. All right, can't do that. There's no deterrent that we can put in place that would 100% guarantee that a shooting would not also really need to look at something called PBIS. And this is a behavioral modification system that schools adopt in Virginia, which basically rewards students for not being bad. So basically, if I say, don't cuss in class today, and I'll let you have music at the end of the hour, that is a ridiculous way of imposing discipline. The discipline should be, if you cuss in class, you're out. You go down here and you deal with the principal, and they're going to call your parents, and we're going to deal with this. You don't reward somebody for not doing bad. And that's what we do in Virginia. So until we really get to the root of how we have taken discipline away from the schools, we're going to have beakers of children that are raised in institutions where there's no penalties and only rewards, and they're going to act out and act inappropriate. And until we get a hold of that, we're never going to have any kind of balance system in the school system, no matter how many deterrents we put up.
I think that we all know that there are times when you cannot stop the determined efforts of someone who has death and destruction on their minds. It's almost impossible. They always seem to find a way. And so what you have to do is to prepare. It's just the way things are in the world today. You can't really trust the person coming in that, that they don't have ill thoughts on their minds. If you find that there's someone in the school who's mentally incapacitated, for example, then we've got to know about it. Unfortunately, in our school systems, we have this issue where the kids are afraid to say anything because they're afraid to be bullied, or they are being bullied, which helps to create the situation. Or there's also snitches get stitches. And, so what we do have to do is to prepare. And sometimes that preparation includes involving those teachers who want to be armed, because you saw that when it came to Uvalde, had some of those teachers in the classrooms been armed, they might have been able, maybe not to stop all of the children, unfortunately, from being gunned down, but certainly stopped the gunman, when he actually should have been stopped long before then. So you just have to prepare, because sometimes the worst does happen.
As Delegate Anderson said, you cannot stop someone who is that determined to do it, but you can minimize the risk by taking certain precautions, like physical security. One of the things in Uvalde, there was a door that had been left unlocked. Some claim it was broken and been asked for repair, but it's incumbent upon the schools to make sure that all the doors are locked. I know that in York County recently, we have changed all the entrances to the foyers. It used to be you would push a button and who's there, oh, parent so-and-so, and they'd buzz you in and off you go. Off you could go. You weren't supposed to. You were supposed to go in the principal's office. Now they all have secure foyers where you get buzzed in, then you go to the office, you get identified, and you're not able to go into the rest of the school until there's been some kind of vetting of who you are and why you're here. So those are the kind of things. In Uvalde, it was a training of the law enforcement down there. In York County, we are highly trained in that. We recently had a active shooter drill at a school with school personnel involved. We used simulated ammunition. We had the fire department there. We had just a lot of the stakeholders there to prepare so that when you go through this exercise, you have a real idea of what to do. One of the problems in Uvalde is nobody knew what to do. Nobody took command. Those are the kind of things that you can at least minimize if there is a shooter, minimize what happens after a shooting starts, and hopefully eliminate that shooter very early in this tragedy, and take control of the situation and minimize the loss of life and injury.
Let me just put one follow-up on that. The alleged shooter in the Heritage incident was a juvenile who was a convicted felon who was out with an ankle bracelet. How do you feel about these liberal policies, I should say? And Governor, we'll start with you.
Well, where do I start? Which liberal policies? No, you've got to tell me, because they're legion. They're
Should he have been out, serious charges pending and be convicted on ankle.
So I'm not really aware about the shooter and all the particulars that you're saying, but in general, I think that if you've got serious crime like that, you ought to be locked up. You're a menace to society, unfortunately, and we've got to get, if you've got some mental issues going on, we've got to get you the therapy that you need. Whatever the situation is, it's absolutely unfortunate. How old was he? 17. So there are all kinds of issues going on. Who knows what the home life was? Maybe there were problems there, and he was acting out, and so I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Somebody thought it was a good idea to let him out. Somebody thought that he could be monitored with the ankle bracelets. Somebody thought that it would be a good situation. I can't tell. I can't second guess that. Except now that we see what has happened, we would of course say he should have been locked up. But it's after the fact.
I would kind of echo those comments. I don't know which liberal policy let him out. Now, if the judge's hands were tied by a policy that he had to be released, I would say that's one of the policies. And in a lot of cases, that's exactly what is going on, that the judges don't have any choice but to go by what that General Assembly put forth. And if it said, hey, first offense, let him out, regardless of how the judge feels about it, that's something that would have to be addressed, and we need to remove that. But I don't know the particular situation either. I don't know exactly how he was released. But we obviously know he was dangerous, and he should not have been let out. But I can't also, without knowing the very particulars of the case, I couldn't say more than that as well.
So I don't know all the particulars of the case either, but I guess what I would say here is, we can kind of see parallels to a case that made national news, and one of the reasons that Governor Youngkin is now our governor, which has to do with Loudoun County. And at the heart of the matter is the sense that parents and students feel like kids are not safe in school, and the policies that are out there now allow for that to happen. So we have this situation where you clearly had a young man who had charges against him. Up in Loudoun County, I think we all know what happened up there. You had a young man who was accused of sexually assaulting a female in his school, and they just moved him to another school. So different situation, but very much I think that the same type of policies that allow for victimization of students in school. So I don't support policies that would allow for that to happen. So we have a lot of work to do in Virginia still on that.
So I'm going to say something crazy. Violent criminals are dangerous. All right. And I know that that's a hard concept for my friends on the other side of the aisle to accept. What the Democrats did in 2020 and 2021 is they abolished something called presumption against bond. And what that basically said before they abolished it is that if you commit serious crimes, you stay in jail most of the time until it's time to go to court, because you're dangerous, right? You're not a guy that stole a car and maybe we can put you on probation, but you went out and you strangled your wife. All right, this actually happened. Her name is Regina Lollobrigida, and I talked about this on the House floor. Husband goes and strangles his wife, tries to kill her, and goes to jail. There's no presumption to keep him in jail. The judge has to release him. He comes home
goes straight to his wife's house and beats her to death with a hammer. Okay? That's what happens when we treat dangerous people with kid gloves. Criminals, dangerous criminals create crime. That's their job. That's what they do. And until we start calling them bad and dangerous and keeping them in jail until we get to court and we can handle these things, when we release them, they're going to come out and commit more crime and victimize more people, just like this lady's husband did, just like the kid who shot the girl in the face in a Newport News high school. That's what they do. Democrats think that nobody should be in jail. We think that if you're bad and dangerous, you should stay in jail because you're a threat to society.
I think Delegate Anderson should run for sheriff maybe one day. But he's right. All of this soft on crime policies do not take any, there's little deterrence anyway. And when you do these soft on crime policies, it reduces the deterrence even more. Just what, 2 years ago, and it went into effect this January. You know, in this July, I said January, but this July, the Department of Corrections had to release between 3,000 and 4,000 criminals out of our prison system because the Democrats changed the sentencing rules where you used to get 5 days a month out of 30 days for being good in prison off your sentence. They cut that in half. So if you got 10 years in prison, now in 5 you're out. And that's why they had to release. And for what purpose does it serve? Does it increase my safety, your safety, the safety of our kids in schools? It is beyond logic. I just could not fathom why somebody would, they don't trust our judges who have heard the case, our juries who have heard the case and have sentenced these people to an appropriate amount of time based on the actual case itself, to just slash the sentences in half. These are the kind of things we need to get turned around and repealed and fixed before it just destroys our entire society, because there is no fear of punishment or deterrence.
Thank you. Moving on to question 4.
Why are they building more schools instead of using the money for what's needed?
Let's start with Delegate Batten, please.
Amanda, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So why are they building more schools instead of using the money for what's needed?
That's very much a local issue, right? So there's some parts of our Commonwealth where they desperately need new schools. We see that not only in our inner cities, we also see it in our rural parts of the Commonwealth, like Southwest Virginia and Southside. Obviously, there's other parts of Virginia. I represent James City and York County. We always have a lot of discussion, especially in the James City County area, about why are we building all these new schools? Why are we not just making better use of the existing space that we have? The General Assembly does not have a lot of tools to force the localities to spend their money one way or another. We do give them money in certain cases for designated activities and programs, but that's very much a local decision. And typically what you actually see in Richmond is you see those inner city localities and the rural areas asking for more money to build more schools and do more repairs. So I know my personal advice would be, if you live in a locality where you think that the money that's going to build a new school is not necessary, that project's not necessary, you need to go to your local school board meeting, and you need to go to your board of supervisor and city council meeting and make your voice heard. Say, you know what, we all have to live within the budget that we have. We have to make do with the space that we have in our lives, and we think that this money should be prioritized elsewhere, and building a fancy new school is not the best way to spend it. And I can assure you that they will listen to you, because it does make a difference when you show up at those meetings and you're an educated voter and you have solid talking points and the information that you need to back up your argument. So think that the money's not being spent well, get involved.
So Delegate Batten, raises a really good point, and one that I've talked about a lot. The Federal Department of Education needs to be abolished. All right, they are completely, there's no business of the federal government being involved in education. The State Department of Education literally needs to be stripped down to its roots and start over. Education is not a federal issue. It's not a state issue. It is the local issue. It is the issue of the localities to decide what's best for their students, to create buildings and facilities, and to create curriculum and create programs that best fit the community. It's not the General Assembly's job to tell Hampton how many schools it can have. It's not the federal government's job to tell anybody anything. It's your city council, it's your school boards that make those decisions. Now, we created tools this year. We allowed localities to be able to borrow money, basically interest-free, out of the literary fund. If they need a school right away, we gave them those tools. But it's not our job. Anybody up here, the lieutenant governor, these delegates, and hopefully the senator eventually down here, it's not our job to tell Hampton or Newport News or Virginia Beach what to do with their educational system. That's a local issue, and anybody who says otherwise is creating an up approach, and it needs to be a down approach, always with education.
I really have to disagree with what he said, that this is a local issue. This is not a, we give the localities money, and the school boards are elected to decide how that money is spent. The school board and the city council are elected to see how that money is spent. So that's really it's up to the school boards, but it's up to the voters who's on the school board and how they spend that money. So that's really all I can say about that. It's a local issue.
It is a local issue. But where I'm thinking I'm going with this is, when all is said and done, are the children actually learning? That's it, basic. Are the children actually learning? Are you getting what you pay for? And if you're not getting what you pay for, then why not? And if it's not going to be forthcoming in the next education cycle, for example, the next school year, then what are we going to do? Because the kids don't always get do-overs. And sometimes they just pass them on to the next grade. When I was visiting some schools in Richmond, for example, there's one school that the teacher said to me, the principal said to me, normally the kids come to my middle school 2 years behind. Because of COVID, they're now 4 years behind. What am I supposed to do? And so something has to be done, and I think it's going to take drastic change. When I had my business, I loved it if when you moved into the community, because of your zip code, you had to choose my company. That would be wonderful. But that's not the way the real world works. There's competition in the real world. And so why is there not competition in education? That's what we need. Because we don't say to our children now that you must attend the university, the college that's closest to your zip code. So why would we do that in K through 12? So I'm fighting a different fight for next year. And I want school choice because you all want school choice. I think that's best. You think that's best. And it will lift all boats. It's not going to destroy public education. It's going to help. If you have a decision and you want to send your child to private school, you can do that. You want to homeschool, you can do that. You want to keep them in public schools, you can do that. Whatever it is, you want a hybrid, we'd like to see change. And that's what I think we need to do.
This really doesn't answer the question about building schools, but I'm going to follow up on the Lieutenant Governor's comments. We need to start teaching our kids, like when I went to school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and maybe some government in there. We need to stop teaching the schools need to stop being parents and teaching social, emotional learning and giving them surveys and all this kind of stuff. Let's get back to the basics. Let's quit pushing everyone towards college so they can run up hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans and come out with no job. We need to at least put on an equal emphasis workforce development and prepare those who want to go into the trades to do the work that needs the plumbers, the mechanics, the air conditioning technicians. We need to be preparing a lot more people to do those kind of things as opposed to just shoving them off into more education where, as somebody said down there, they get more liberal indoctrination, which will lead to the eventual ruin of our entire nation. I think that's what we need to do. Get back to the basics. Quit being parents. Give parents a say in what goes on in these schools. Notify parents, and everything should really be. It's all this. You can opt out, opt out, opt out. You opt out of sex education. You can opt out of this. Parents have to opt out. It ought to be the other way around. Your child doesn't get anything unless you opt into it.
Devin, next question.
How can we make it legal for all VA schools to be frowned upon for pushing emails encouraging me to get an AA loan as the only option?
Read that question again.
How can we make it illegal for all VA schools to be frowned upon for pushing emails encouraging me to get an AA loan as the only option?
Delegate Anderson, we're going to start with you.
Well, I'm a lawmaker, so I guess I can make something illegal. I don't know the answer to this question. Sorry, I don't know what an AA loan is, so I'm sorry. I don't know. Do you know? Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know.
I don't know if they're just talking about general student loans as if they push student loans. If they're speaking about that, I think the question really is asking why aren't more grants pushed first to the students? And I don't think that needs to be a law versus what we just need to hire better administrators and better counselors so that people don't get these higher loans. I think that's what they're trying to ask, but I'm not sure exactly.
Let me follow
up on that question real quick. Do you have any ideas of how to make college and trade school more affordable? Any type programs, anything, any loans other than forgiving $10,000 worth of debt? And we'll start with Sheriff Diggs.
Well, I know some, at least in the higher ed, college, some people are not going to like this. Do you see these colleges? I mean, they are mansions. I mean, they are marble and pillars and awesome castles. But yet they teach online learning every day at a college level. You can take online college courses from these prestigious universities. Does that not drive the cost of college extravagantly high? College professors, while they are learned people and go to college and they have doctorates and all this, some of those people make $250,000 or more. They're some of the highest paid people in the state. But if you have time, go and look. There's databases out there what state employees make. And all of the top people are in these universities making hundreds of thousands of dollars, while our school teachers in K through 12 are making what, $40,000, $50,000, at least in this locality, these localities. I'm in the neighborhood anyway. I just don't. And how many students do they teach? Do they have these little classes of 15 or 25? You know, they teach 1, 2 classes for $250,000. They should be working 40, 60 hours a week teaching as many people as they can. There is a significant problem with the higher education system, and why does it cost so much? And what do they turn out? They turn out people that can't get jobs because they're not properly prepared, because the jobs are not there. I don't know, but boy, the cost of higher education is, I just can't think of a word, absurd. There's all these words are coming through my head, and I just can't choose one, but it is unbelievable.
Any ideas to reduce the cost of secondary college education for schools?
Well, I guess one way to reduce the cost of the college would be, you have to ask yourself, is this a course that you're going to take? I mean, you're offering courses that don't lead to anything. Why would you do that? And, you know, when I went to college, I went the hard way. I had 3 children under 5, and, you know, I was selling used vehicles to help fund my education so that I could go to college. I was not your traditional student. And, you know, then my husband sold one of our vehicles, and I was riding on a bicycle and taking my last baby to daycare so that I could go to school. So if you're asking me about reducing, I made sure that I sat up front where the professor could spit on me because I'm paying for this. So, you know, I made sure I paid special attention. Meantime, I could see those whose mommies and daddies were paying for things, and they were yapping away in the back. So I would say, you don't always have to go to college. I mean, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was trained as an electrician. And electricians at the time in New York, where I was raised, were $50 an hour. That's a lot of money way back then. And you know, we have CDL programs that we're paying for. Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, and the legislators can tell you, have passed certain laws where you can get into some of these schools welding. There's a lot of on-the-job training that you can get now because the workers, we're wondering, has a Twilight Zone episode happened and taken away half of these workers? Where are the workers? So you can get into schools for a trade, and you don't have to have the attendant $85,000 college tuition behind it. So I'd like to see more of that, actually.
And well, one thing I would say is there are a lot of schools. I work in Newport News Shipbuilding, and has anyone heard of the apprentice school? So that is basically exactly what the Lieutenant Governor was talking about. It's basically on-the-job training. They teach you what you need to know. They put you out in the field, and then at the end of it, you get a degree out of it, and you have a guaranteed job. That's how we need to be doing education, because there's no loans. I think they use a little bit of your grant, the normal grant that most students get, but you're getting paid to do a job, learn it, and get a degree at the end. And you have a job, a good paying job. And that's the way we need to be doing education, instead of giving out gender studies degrees where you can't get any kind of job with that. This is why they have these mansions, because they're basically giving out pieces of paper that are useless while they're sitting up in their fancy suits, teaching nothing to a bunch of people who are not paying attention. And so we need to correct that. I need to have more schools teaching things we need. We need welders. We need to build ships. We need that kind of thing instead of stuff that's completely useless to our society.
So, full disclosure, I have a son who's a senior at Virginia Tech, and he's a mechanical engineering major. And I told him when he went to college, I'm like, look, you better find a degree that is going to pay you well when you get out. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time and your money, and that is not a good investment. And that's really my take on it. And the tools are actually out there now for students and for parents to figure out what the value of the degree is. There was a pretty comprehensive study that came out this past summer, I believe in June, that showed how much you pay in college tuition in some of Virginia's colleges and what the value of that degree is. So a great example is that if you major in philosophy at Virginia Commonwealth University, Tuition there, just tuition, is about $15,000 a year. And the study showed that 5 years after graduation, those philosophy majors were still making minimum wage. Okay? So you know that if you're taking out loans, you're not going to be able to pay it back if there's no way you're going to be able to get a job that's going to pay you well enough. That's just a simple fact. And I think that there needs to be a greater education of parents and students alike that if you're going to pay for college, it has to actually be an investment that that benefits you later in life. I will say on a more granular basis in higher education, the thing that annoys me the most is just the absolutely enormous layer of administrative bureaucracy that exists. If you ever go to a college's website and you look up all their administrative positions, sometimes they're just like a word soup where things are rearranged. Like, you know, you have a creative director of inclusivity, and then you have an inclusive director of creativity kind of a thing. And those positions pay quite well. And every dollar that you're paying for that administrative overhead is a dollar that's not going directly toward classroom education. If you've had a kid in college, you know that they were most likely taught by a TA for a lot of their classes. And we can absolutely do better. And I fully expect to see legislation coming forward during this upcoming session that addresses that. Because what just happened with the debt forgiveness on the federal level was a gift to colleges. It said, you know what, you can get as many loans as you want, and you can get a degree that doesn't allow you to ever pay off your debt. And we're not going to hold the colleges accountable. We're just going to give them a free pass. We're going to forgive your debt. And that's unacceptable. It's not fair to students. It's not fair to parents. And it's sure as heck not fair to taxpayers who are footing the bill for that.
So I love being at the end of this because I can put a button on everything. So to Sheriff Diggs's point, the #1 paid employee in the Commonwealth is a professor at ODU. He makes $900,000 a year. The #2 highest paid employee in the Commonwealth of Virginia is a George Mason women's basketball coach. Now, there are places like Tech that have coaches that are paid millions of dollars, but they're paid out of the booster fund, so it's not taxpayer dollars. Those two people I just talked about are taxpayer-funded dollars. Governor Youngkin just put a freeze, told UVA, we're going to freeze your tuition, and they're going to, you know, I think they're begrudgingly going to do that. But here's the sin in higher education. It's student loans, all right? The price of education is whatever they can borrow in student loans. That's been the variable equation of public education for decades. So if you can borrow $18,000 this year, tuition's going to be $18,000. If you can borrow $9,000, tuition's going to be $9,000. That's what they've been doing. It's the biggest scam in history that they allowed these students to just borrow max numbers to pay their tuition rates. How do you fix it? Well, you could start putting caps on these ridiculously paid college employees. That's true. But another way you could fix it is this. Some college should be free. All right? And I'm going to get blasted on this, but some college should be free. We need welders, we need mechanical engineers, but we need doctors. All right? We need doctors. And so if we create a path for kids to go to school that doesn't cost them anything to eventually come out and become doctors, and now you have to work in Southwest Virginia for 10 years, that's the deal. We invest in you. You go work in the underdeveloped parts of the state where we need doctors especially. Then that's how you can get kids through college without coming out with crushing debt. These universities can support that. UVA has $1 billion endowment. They can absolutely support that, and we can invest in things we want kids to go to. If you want to go to college and get a degree in French anthropology, great. You got to pay for that. But if you're going to actually come out and help the society in areas that we need, doctors, nurses, dentists, things like that, we'll help you along. You will invest in you. You come back and serve the community through a program like we do for teachers. That's how you can create affordable education, and you can guide people. Hey, you can go get this degree in French anthropology, or you can go become a doctor. This costs $80,000. This is free. They'll go that way, and we need those people to go that way.
All right, Gavin, next question.
Are workforce and trade students really considered college students?
Steve, we're going to start with you on this.
That's a tough question. Well, I will say it depends on what you're getting out of it. You could be getting a degree in a trade. Like I said, if you go to the apprentice school, there's a lot of those are degrees, even though it's clearly a trade, but you would come out with a degree, which I think is a little bit better because a degree will give you a more broad opportunities for employment than just a trade. But we need just trades too. So it really is, it depends on the school you go to, what they decide to give you. If they give you a certificate or if they give you a degree. So really that's the best answer I can give.
I mean, maybe the question was just a technical one and it sounded more like a question of semantics, but I really do think it kind of boils down to encouraging students to go to trade schools, to fill those roles and get the education and the credentials that they need to have a worthwhile career ahead of them. Not every student has to go to a four-year college. You absolutely don't have to do that in order to be successful, to run your own small business, to be a productive member of society. I think we need to have a greater focus on that in our high schools now. And I really think that we have an outstanding opportunity where we are, because kids are looking at the debt loads and saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to earn a return on my investment. But there are other jobs out there that require far less education, far less expense, and they provide a much higher quality of life. And I think we are at a place now where folks are interested in that. And I strongly support programs at our K-12 and our high schools that allow for those opportunities, those bridges into trade schools and to, if you need an associate's degree, depending what the field is, that we really need to be focusing on that right now. You don't need to have a four-year degree in every single field, and you certainly don't need to have a four-year degree in order to be successful. My dad ended up in the engineering field. He got there by, being in the military. He never went to college. So there are a lot of different routes to success in life, and I think that we focus on a four-year college to the detriment of other options that are out there.
She's exactly right. We create a mindset in our children that the only path to success is college. And that needs to be restarted in high school. In ninth grade, there needs to be more trade schools introduced, and there needs to be a sense of pride that's instilled in children that, yes, some of you may become doctors, but some of you are going to go become plumbers, and some of you are going to become AC mechanics, and some of you are going to become welders, and those are great jobs. And so we program our children that the only success, the only path that matters is college, and very rarely do these college kids come out after 4 years. They come out riddled with debt with some wacky degree that's not worth it, while their trade school counterparts come out with welding and are making $80,000 or $90,000 a year in their first year. That person is ahead of the game, and that needs to be brought down and educated in the high schools so that people understand that these things exist. A lot of these programs we're talking about can be done in high school, and they can come out of high school ready to go. It just really requires more of an investment in that education in the high school years.
Long time ago, when I worked for the Chamber of Commerce, the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce, I was in charge of the education programs. And what we tried to do was to bring businesses and schools together so that they could talk to each other. That was 20 plus years ago. And believe it or not, it was kind of new then. It just wasn't happening. And the businesses got involved because they figured they needed to, because the schools just weren't producing the kind of folks that they needed. I had the school superintendent say to me, Winston, the kids can go to college and then they can get their BA, their MA, and their PhD. But at some point, they're going to have to get that JOB. And let me tell you something. Yes, you could be a lawyer and you can be a doctor, etc. But when that plumbing doesn't work, you need a plumber to flush that toilet. You understand what I'm saying? And then when I sat on the State Board of Education, we at the time kept hearing from parents that there were two tracks. There was the vocational school track, and then there was the college track. And some parents said it was racist that their kids were not offered the college track. So vocational school pretty much ran away. This issue about racism can destroy things that actually work, because not all kids want to go to college. And the truth is, white kids were actually going to vocational school in greater numbers than black kids. But we got rid of that, and where are we now? And so we do have to make sure that we have all options available. We know that there's a problem, even if you're a doctor, because we lost quite a few OBGYNs because the liability insurance got to be so high that they left the field. I know one OBGYN who's making jewelry because it just got to be, she just could not charge enough to pay for her liability. So there, we live in a free society, as free as it's going to be, and we're going to keep it free if we can, get enough people elected who think so, and that you can make certain choices, and you do have to live with the choices, the consequences that you make. And fortunately, you can get retraining. For example, you can have cybersecurity certificates in a year, and you could be making good 6-figure, 7-figure jobs. I mean, it's out there. I was asked one time, there's a family of 4 living on $24,000. What am I going to do about it? And I said, why is a family of 4 living on $24,000 when there are certification programs that you can move into within 6 months? And you could be making a very good, high-paying job. So we do need to have educational opportunity, and I think that that's probably what the question was asking. Yes.
All right, we're coming up to the last question, and before we have the last question here, let's give a big round of applause to our moderator here, Mr. Gavin Mitchell. Gavin, this is your last question. Make it a good one.
What does education mean to you?
What does education mean to you? Uh-oh. Governor, which way we start? All right, start with Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson. Somebody got that.
Education is the definition of your life. And we must reinvest that concept into our children. We must teach them how to think, not necessarily what to think. We should let them go through a process of developing the critical skills for a successful life so that they can formulate their own opinions. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening. What's happening is we are educating our children to be indoctrinated to one political ideology or one thought or the other. And we're grooming and creating children to hate their country. When the children leave school, they hate their country. There has been no lower patriotic time of children between 18 and 25 that dislike their country more than we have right now. So it's our jobs not just to make sure they know how to do math and learn how to read and write, but it's our job to make sure that we instill the core values of love of country, love of neighbor, so that when they come out, they can pass that down to their children. Otherwise, in a couple more generations, all we're going to have is people coming out that hate the country, think the country's bad, think the country's systemically racist from its roots, and it needs to be burned to the ground, and eventually it will be. Education is important like it's never been before. And since this is my last time to talk, I brought ice scrapers as little gag gifts for you all if you're going to need them over here in Hampton. So if you guys want an ice scraper, I have them. All right.
So, I mean, there's the fundamentals of education, which to me means, you make sure that kids actually know what the facts are. I know it's really unpopular right now to pretend that there's such a thing as truth, to pretend that there's actual facts that kids need to memorize, but that's the fundamental building block. Next, you need to make sure that they have the critical thinking skills where they understand how to take those facts and put them together and develop an argument that makes sense and really learn what logic is. And then lastly, they need to be able to defend that, to put that all together, to take the facts, to take the critical thinking skills that they've developed, and to be able to put forward coherent arguments and recognize when they see fallacies that are in front of them. And I think to Tim's point, fundamental to all of that are core values. You know, our country's obviously not perfect because nothing is, but it's the absolute best place in this entire planet for anyone to live. It's still the land of opportunity here, and our students need to know that. And another unpopular term I think that goes by the wayside these days is the term virtue. We do need to teach virtues to our children. You absolutely need to be educated in the virtues. I'm not going to get into what those are. I think in some cases they probably mean different things to different people, but we need to believe it. We need to make sure that our children are educated to know what truth is, to know that there's love of family is important. It's at the core of everything that we do. And until we get back to those basics, we're just going to have challenges here throughout our education system across the country. But for me, that's what education is. And I also think that it's lifelong. We live in an amazing time. If there's anything that you want to know right now, I guarantee you can pick up your phone and you can find a podcast or a YouTube video on it. And lifelong learning is available to us now more than ever before. And we have opportunities in that regard, but of course we also have challenges.
So for me, education is the basic foundation of your path in life. If you don't know how to read, there's nothing that someone can tell you that's a lie that you'll be able to verify. We don't teach kids cursive anymore. We don't really focus on reading, on writing, on how to express yourself correctly, speech fundamentals. We don't teach a lot of math, but we do teach pronouns. That's about the only thing in education we're teaching right now. And we're not even sticking to the basic language that we speak. We need to teach. Education is the backbone of who you are as a person. If you don't know anything, you can't do anything. All you can do is be programmed, and not even very well. So education is the most important thing that a community does for its children. Besides birthing them, education is the most important thing, and we have to get it right. Because every generation that's taught wrong is going to teach their generation they spawned wrong. And it's going to continue and continue and continue. And we cannot survive as a society with that kind of decline. So we're here, all of us here are dedicated to correcting our education system to make sure that we save the next generation from illiteracy, from not knowing how to do basic math. And one of the biggest problems is this right here. I know so many kids who don't know what a multiplication table is, but they know how to do math on this. They know how to text, but they don't know how to do cursive. They don't know how to sign their name. And that is, it's sad, but it's also a wake-up call to us because we are the people who are in charge of making sure they are educated so that when we pass, because we're not going to be here forever, they can pass something along to their children. So that's what education means to me.
I think about what education means to someone who doesn't have it. You know, my dad came, as you probably know, with $1.75 in his pocket. He took that money, got any job he could find, and used it to put himself through school. Started his American dream with that, and now he's comfortably retired. He could not have done that without a good education. And then I'm here because I got a good education. When I look at the reason why Amazon located its headquarters, for example, in Northern Virginia and not the Southwest, where they desperately need the corporate offices, it's clear. It's because the jobs that are required at the headquarters, 62% of the population in Northern Virginia has a bachelor's degree. It's only, I believe, 12 to 14% in the Southwest. Businesses go where the population is educated, that they need. When I look at the people who didn't have education, I think of the slaves. And I was looking for what Frederick Douglass said when his master discovered that his master's wife was teaching him how to read. And this is what he said. When the master found out that I was being taught to read, he said to his wife, if you teach him how to read, then you can't ever keep him as a slave. Because you see, he could write his own ticket to freedom. Literally. He could write a pass that says, Frederick Douglass is a free man. Allow him free movement. You see what I mean? And so it's no wonder then that what the slaves wanted, first of all, was their freedom. Second thing that they wanted was their families to be reunited. And then they wanted an education. With an education, doors open. Now, it may not have always been true, but here's somebody else who talked about education. Martin Luther King Jr. said in 1965, when he was talking to Barat Junior High School in Philadelphia, he said to them, burn the midnight oil. I know the socioeconomic problems, but work hard, study hard, because doors are going to open for you that were never open for your parents. Be prepared to walk through those doors when they open. Friends, the doors have opened. Otherwise, I could not be here. He could not be here. So our children must understand that education will open the doors. It will open the doors. So education has to become important to them. Not just to us as parents, but it has to be important to them. And finally, I have said that the lack of an education in America is now a national security issue, because China is number one. Estonia has beaten us. There's a test called the Program for International Student Assessment, PISA. It tests 15-year-olds throughout the world. Tests them every 3 years on reading comprehension, math, and science. And in all three of those categories, China's beating us. Then Singapore, then Taiwan, then Japan. Do you see the trend? China's number one, America's number 22. But we are the number one superpower, really. How long do you think we can be that? China has more honor students than we even have students total. So we've got to kick this in gear and stop beating ourselves, doxing ourselves, canceling ourselves, the name calling, because there's a big world out there and it doesn't care about what we think about things, because they're going to get past us, and they're going to get past us quickly. So education is that important that it could destroy us if our kids don't get it.
Wow. Let me tell you, I've heard Winsome SEARs speak on several occasions, and every time I am so inspired, because when the story she just told about this opportunity, this education, and this struggle, you know why she tells it so inspiringly, so, you know why? Because so eloquently, because she's telling her life story to us tonight. And she tells it over and over and over. And every time I hear her, I'm always inspired to where I almost can't talk. And it's always a great pleasure to be with her. So thank you so much. I mean, you just, every time I'm impressed. So what is education? I will answer the question. There's different kinds of education. Formal education is reading, writing, arithmetic. We all need to know our multiplication tables, how to add 2 plus 2, because when our phones are dead, we have to do stuff. Although I did see a meme the other day that said, another day goes by and I've yet to use algebra. Anyway. But then there's book smarts and there's street smarts, let's call it common sense. That's education as well. And I know that during my life, while I've learned some things academically and all, those life experiences, those things that you get from making mistakes and surviving and bettering yourself, those things that you do that are successes that encourage you to continue on, that is education as well, and that is of much value as formal education, although formal education helps you through those mistakes and those successes. And so we need this combination of education, and we need inspiration from people who can tell a story of how they had a hard path. They took that road, they took the opportunity, and we all have that opportunity. That opportunity is available, or should be, and I believe is. Some just don't take advantage of it. That's education, gives you that basis, that springboard to jump off to accomplish the things in life you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. At the beginning of this, I introduced candidates who were here. We had one who came in from the Hampton School Board, Nikita Miller. If you could just wave your hands in there and show everybody you're here. What an inspiring evening. The sheriff put it correct. Wow. I mean, wow. Wow. Let's give a big round of applause to our panel. Sheriff Diggs, Governor, AC, our host, Delegate Vatten, and Delegate Anderson. And AC, I'm going to let you go ahead and close it out for us.
Well, first, I want to thank everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate being able to interact with the community, to answer your questions, and to just hopefully show you where we're here to listen more than we really want to talk. So if there's anything that I can do, if you're in my district, I'm sure Tim and Amanda and Lieutenant Governor and Sheriff will be in agreement with this. If there's anything we can ever do, please reach out to us. Please stay, and I want to thank our the ones who really hosting us, Vanguard, and the owner for letting us use this place. And please stay, have a meal, have some drinks. They have, I don't drink, but I've heard they have some really, really good alcohol here. So please have some. Thank you for coming, and we'll be having another one soon.
May I ask you a question, please? How is it doing the job that you do?
Every day, sir.
How you feel about him, Mr. Tim Anderson?
Tim is a great addition to our caucus. He's not afraid to say what he thinks.
Do you think he think you cute? Because he keep looking at you. Go back and watch the video. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah. That's we're trying to equal each other. The member of this party, I think that's I'm on. Thank you. Two. Good to see you. Just get here. Did I have to buy you a number to say hello? No, it's not. I'm so sorry. I was the reason I was here. We've been hitting the wall already in our schedule on Drive Airport. Tomorrow, yes, no, it's in December. Sorry? No. I'm on Civic Leaders Association. We try to promote between Lakeland and good relations with the community, so we don't lose another base. Amen. Anyway, good to see you. Thanks.
Hello. Yes. That's a big quick. We are hard to go. Yeah, we sell lots of them. I'm telling 9 days, some of these people at hotel lines. Yes, okay. Yeah. So you're following me on live on social media. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm a #1 new supporter. Okay. In Hampton Roads, so you're live streaming right now. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, you cutting the video. You cut the video off. Yeah. Why you calling me? You see me live now? I in the live real quick because I'm thinking something wrong. Oh my God. Because I see this was class. I'm sorry. Trying to be clear. It's just
So I wasn't expecting one video. That's why I was like, I like looked up and I was like, this is where's everybody at? That's what I'm sorry. That's what freaked me out.
They said they couldn't hear nothing you said.
Really?
Yeah, you talk so low. You got to. I don't have that. Yeah, we'll go back. But they called me in the video. They said, you didn't talk loud.
We'll go with that in that room. I'll see it. What a phenomenal
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yes, yes.
and also for our school board race. Such and that's my dad, it's here, they're definitely without the music. It's a pretty interesting conversation. I talked today very quickly about citizenship. One of the traits of a good citizen is to be proud of the teacher. And so why are we proud of it? Sunday,
Okay, are you taking it out? But I can't send it to you.
SEAR is really good.
Yeah,
SEAR for all your hard work. Hey, always.
Lieutenant Governor, can you tell us how hard is it being a black lieutenant governor in the United States?
Oh.
And a female.
Okay. You got me on Facebook too. It's fine. Just leave it from the phone here. 757 759 6867. Here's my phone. You can get us. There you go. Thank you for doing that. I got you some. We got that. Yeah, great. I don't know.
Yeah. Can I ask you one last question? Do you believe in the city councilman board banning out citizens or having their own opinion about the city?
No, that's what this is about. We are a constitutional republic, and the reason why we have government is to allow to live the life that they want to live, right? We gotta have order, we gotta have security, we gotta have defense, we gotta have defense. But after that, we the voters need to remind ourselves that the government works for us. The city council works for us. The mayor works for us. The school board works for us. I work for you.
Can I tell you something that's sad?
I'm answerable to you.
Can I tell you something that's sad? I'm an independent black journalist in Norfolk, Virginia, and the city of Newport News banned me out of Newport News City Hall because they don't like my style of reporting.
Why can't, no. There's gotta be something she can do. Freedom of Information Act and all that, they can't ban.
They charged me over almost $300 just to get paperwork.
Now, there is a charge for that. Reasonable charge.
Okay.
They can charge you. And if you don't think it's reasonable, take them to court. That's what we have. The other branch of government. But no, they work for you. They work. Are you a citizen there?
I'm a citizen. I take care of the citizens in Newport News. I supply bed bugs. I buy mattresses. I put homeless people in hotels out my own pocket.
I would go to every city council meeting and sign up to speak. Okay, so they can't stop you. It's because even a regular citizen, they can't stop you.
With banning me out of City Hall, I'm not able to open a business in Newport News.
I don't understand. You gotta get an attorney that's now you have to fight your government.
It's hard.
And then we need to go.
Have a blessed day. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call me and call my office and let's see how we can fight.
Yes, ma'am.
That's not gonna happen.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much.
I gotta run.
Yes, ma'am. I live in Norfolk, but I work in all sectors. So I represent all citizens of the 757. So wherever they call me at, I go with it. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Right. you as well. Come back. Okay, that's fine.
I can't say that I
Consultant on this night to be out here. He paid to watch me here. But thank you to the shop. So okay, somebody asked me to wait. So guys, we're gonna be ready to get out of here, but somebody wanted me to wait for them before we go. Everyone that's gone, guys, I wanted to see this man right quick when he get opportunity to see what he's running for and what he's standing for before we go. Yes, Can you tell us why we should vote you in and what you do for the next city councilman and you want to switch it?
Well, first and foremost, my name is Steve. Today, I'm a business owner, retired firefighter. And as a business owner, the city of Newport News today is not business.
It's not.
Every time we go down to business, chances are always no. Comes to permitting, planning, closing, signs, we need to make sure that we are. I can close up my taxes. Then I make better opportunities for our citizens is we have small business in the community. 85% of businesses in the country today are business. It's the heart, soul, and blood of our city, our economy, our nation. And we need to have more of it. We need that as a city that's not concerned. We need to lower taxes. Newport News has the highest property tax in the Hampton Roads region. It discourages businesses from coming to own property, and that's going to determine where you're going to live. And if you're paying $1.22 per 100 or per thousand versus 78 cents, where you going to live?
Right.
So So we need to lower our restaurant tax. We turned our restaurateurs into tax collectors, which is not their job. We need to have safer schools. We need to have a safer city. And we need to, I love the forum tonight just because introducing trades, we need to collect mechanical trades and have public-private partnerships with school systems, with HVAC, plumbers, bricklayers, electricians, and start that in high school. When I was going to school, you could take a mechanical engineering, CAD.
Vocational school.
Yeah, no, in class at high school, when I was going to high school.
Wow.
So you could take one of those trades, and then they would introduce you to a business outside of that you could do internships in the summertime to gain experience.
Wow.
And then when you left high school, you could actually have a job.
Wow.
So we need to partner with our trades in our city. So not only do we have a workforce development program for our trades, our citizens, so we're not failing our children.
Right. What are you planning on doing different than the current city councilman board right now?
Well, one, we need to come together as a council. The current city council doesn't really talk, in my opinion, doesn't really have a vision on where the city needs to go. We need to change that. We need to establish a vision. We need to come together as a council and lead. That's what we're elected to do. When I get elected, we're elected to lead, and we need to be held accountable to the voters, and we need to do what's best for them, not what's best for the left, not what's best for the right, what's best for the citizens of Newport News.
Do you agree with the city of Newport News, Virginia, banning citizens that have their different opinion out of City Hall?
I didn't hear that question.
Are you in agreement with City Hall in Newport News banning citizens out of City Hall?
Well, it's a public place, and as a citizen, you ought to be able to, if you have business in the city hall, you should be able to go to City Hall.
Well, I'm an independent journalist, and you see how I conduct myself. I stood in the gap for CB Rock Apartments in the city of Newport News. And because I didn't say what they wanted me to say, they now banned me from City Hall for a couple of years. Would you be willing to change that ban if you get into office?
I would have to know the full extent of that before I could venture an opinion. I don't know the details of that situation. I want to make sure I have an informed opinion.
Okay.
I don't have that information.
No laws were broken. No city codes or city ordinance was violated. Nobody have a appeal process. There's no appeal process. Nobody will answer their telephone or return a phone call, even though the letter states to answer the phone or to make an appointment. No one will respond to me or my lawyers or nobody at all.
Well, like I said, I don't have the full knowledge of the situation, but if they told you to call and make an appointment to discuss it, then we as a city should be making that appointment, sitting down with you to discuss that.
And also, I think the city of Newport News need to have a appeal process. If you're going to ban someone, you should at least have an appeal process where they can come in front of the city councilman board and please address the issue they came to.
I don't know that they don't, but there should always be an appeal to the elected officials to do what's right.
Well, I hope to see you at the finish line. I hope to work with you soon. I think you'll be a great candidate. I really, really do think you'll be a great candidate to sit on the city councilman board so we can have some diversity inside the city of Newport News. It's time that we stop voting for color and start voting for the people. And I think you'll be a great candidate for the city councilman board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a blessed evening. Thank you.
Guys, as you've seen it here first, guys, we have interviewed just about everybody, guys. It has been one long afternoon for me here in Hampton, Virginia, guys. The Lieutenant Governor, Mrs. Sears, was simply amazing. Mrs. Sears was simply amazing. The delegate, Tim Alexander, he has such a wonderful personality. He's a bubbly person. I just love his spirit. The sheriff, Danny Diggs, he is so down to earth. He is a people person. He speaks a lot on not wasting money on education and get more trades. Also, Delegate AC CORDOZA, he actually put this thing together here in Hampton, Virginia. He's simply amazing. Make sure when he ran for office again, he gets your vote. Delegate Amanda VATTEN. She was actually amazing as well. And Delegate Glenn Davis, I think they was here. I think I was give them a kudos as well. I am Rhoda Young Live. This was brought to you by Hood Consultant. Guys, if you need a consultant, contact Hood Consultant in a neighborhood near you. Until we meet again, I am Rhoda Young Live. Have a wonderful afternoon. Last but not least, is that her husband? Is that her husband? Hey, how you doing? All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.